the, cast away, thrown out, even in cadavers when they were dissecting. Now we have fascia that the fluids are gone out of it, that you've now embalmed them, and you can't see them, you can't see fascia in its real state, in vivo. Now they're sticking cameras underneath the skin and watching how they act. Jean-Claude Gumberto is probably the first person that did the strolling under the skin or something. I think that's the name of the video, where he shows you with a camera as he's moving it through the fascia layers. And you can actually see how the gooey stuff, that thick gel that Thomas Myers of Anatomy Trains calls snot, you can actually see it. You can see how everything kind of works together. So I think I've ventured several steps away from the question.
That's from the pregnant person?
So the defense mechanism. Helene Langevin has a talk at one of the universities where she's talking about cancer. That cancer tumors, they've determined that cancer tumors, that the fascia will actually wrap around the tumor and enclose it. And it gets harder and harder and harder and harder. And then that one of the things that they are working on, and actually she shows several pictures of what happens with tumor cells and how when the fascia now has encased it and starts to move towards the center, that now they know that it's that's where the cancer is in a certain stage, that it's probably fourth stage and probably not going to be resolved. So we know that happens when the body has some things they're trying to get rid of. And we've started to put that together with toxins. We see it, and here's how we think that it's happening, that we're comparing that to everything else we're feeling. If you've ever gotten a flu shot, and this area down here is still full of fluid for about 2 or 3 weeks later. And we've seen it with several of our clients where they've gone in for a shot of something that the doctor has given them, and that shot has now caused neuropathy in the localized area or further down their leg. So injections we're finding based off of what we're feeling and how we resolve it is that we think that the fascia is actually enclosing around it to compartmentalize it on purpose as a defense mechanism. So back to the breastfeeding part, we thought that it really depends on what you're doing with them. If you're just working on the lower back and you're just trying to free up mobility and a little less pain, we didn't find anything wrong with that. If you're doing extreme edema kind of things, and some of you have been on the receiving end of releasing a lot of fluids and fascia and restricted fascia and finding that you're in a healing crisis. Because now your body still has to deal with all of the toxins that now got freed up into your interstitial spaces. And it takes days and weeks for your body to take care of it. When you take this head and neck and flush it down here, we're going to show you the safe zone, where all of your lymphatic fluid flows back to this subclavian section here, to where it puts it back into your cardiovascular system. We call this the safe zone. To try to get as much interstitial fluid up here as possible, or into the next zone so that other lymphatic nodes can take care of it and clean it. When you start taking all of this stuff up here, which is trapped by, you're gonna, if you haven't felt it already, you're gonna feel this ring that you have around your neck for the people that have really bad sinus pressure, like I do. Of course, mine keeps coming back because of dust and allergens, and then I go and lay down and sleep, and this all fills up and gets tight, and this is all messed up because of my pillows and the way I sleep. Once you release this, now you've got toxins that are out in other parts of your body. So your immune system's now saying, oh, wait a minute, something's going on, and your immune system responds accordingly. That's what we think the healing crisis is all about. The toxins that are now working their way through, and they got dispersed into the rest of the body. So when it comes to breastfeeding or pregnant mother. So breastfeeding, we were concerned about that. We're not so concerned about it now. We just make sure that we're not putting them into a healing crisis. When it comes to pregnancy, a pregnant mother, this is Bobby Joe's philosophy. If you work on a pregnant mother, make sure that you both agree that those tuning forks, when you work on that mother, she's ready to have that baby in the event that you induce labor. She's induced labor on a mother before, on purpose. It's a well-known fact in tuning forks that you can do it.
And reflexology too.
What she did, she would never work right on the belly. But you could work in different areas. Basically, it all has to do with the lower back. That gets tightened up so bad that that's what's holding up a lot of the pregnancies from natural birth, is the lower back region being so tight that it tightens everything up.
So they have to be at a certain point, like, what's your cutoff, like 34 weeks or?
36 is
36?
the current norm.
Yeah. And so far, it's 2 or 3 times that this has happened. Within 24 hours to 2 days, you start loosening up that lower back using the regular lower back protocol, and she's ready to have that baby. So just keep those things in mind. If she's not ready to have that baby, then it's totally up to you if you want to work on the neck, or if it's a hand or something like that. But I'd stay away from the lower back.
Does that ever help with the breech?
Like make the baby turn.
Yeah.
That'd be
I-
interesting.
I don't know.
That
I
might
can't
be a question
imagine.
for Bobby Joe. You never know how she'll answer that.
Yeah. Device implants, fixtures, prosthesis. And we're going to learn in this class when it comes to medical modifications and alterations. They're going to be a client for life. You're never going to be able to return them back to full working condition. You can't undo what a surgeon has done. So what we work on and focus on is quality of life, and hopefully preventing them from having the other side or the other one done. And what we're seeing for some reason is, we see this a lot, where they had their right knee replaced, but that wasn't the one that was the worst. It was the left knee. I don't know why they're doing this. Hips, knees. They replace the one that's not as bad, and now they're still nursing the bad one. And there's been several times where our clients have decided on their own to call off surgery, the day before the surgery, because they left our office and what they were about to go into surgery for had been resolved in that one session, and it never came back.
Knees and hips.
Especially knees and hips. A lot of times it's the lower back. These protocols that we're working on in this class has prevented more surgeries than I can even count at this point. Just because we're thinking differently. We're resolving the problem. Those tuning forks can do that. So if there's already a medical modification, there's not much you can do but consider the fact that any modification, the fascial network around it has to compensate. So you'll get overcompensation by the other side depending on what it is. Pins, plates, those sorts of things. We would stay away from the pins and plates and things that are supposed to be fusing bones together, because my philosophy is you put vibration on, right on that pin, you have a securing mechanism between two bones or a layer or something like that. That pin starts to vibrate and could work its way loose from the bone. So you can work in the soft tissue around it, because think about your fascia is actually a shock absorber as well. So I wouldn't be concerned with working in the soft tissue around plates, metal, you know, those sorts of things.
But not on a knee replacement, for example. You just go higher or lower.
Yeah, not right on the replacement itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't need to, and here's another way of looking at things. Instead of looking at the bone first, look at we're soft tissue people. So we work on the soft tissue, the bones resolve themselves. You will see with working on the spine that Bobby Joe is going to show you how to feel for ribs that are out and vertebrae that are out of alignment. That's quick work with these tuning forks. If you've ever heard of Bios tensegrity before, that term means that those bones are actually floating in our fascia that's keeping us together and keeping us upright. That when we go in and put tuning forks along the spine in the right spot, you'll hear and feel the vertebrae pop right back into place. Your palpation skills of determining that there's a vertebrae out. Tuning forks on both sides of it. Just loosen it up, pop, right back into place. And it will pop. It'll be very obvious to you and your client that it popped back into place. Having your hand on it really works as well, and you'll be very surprised to feel it go and pop back into place. If she can't get it back in within one session, she recommends going to the chiropractor. What usually happens with the chiropractor is they go to the chiropractor, they start working on the bone first. Now they come back to us because the soft tissue around the bone that they just forced back in place is still tight. We loosen the lines holding the bones out of place. We loosen them up to let the bones float back into place where they belong. Your body knows what your alignment is supposed to be. Give it a chance. We can feel ribs out all the time. There is this telltale spot right here on your clavicle. My clavicle ends right here. This is very sore. So this is the inside of my clavicle, where I can feel that now. Just inwards, about a half an inch. If I feel in there and it is really tight, and there's this, feels like a little line or something in there, like a cord in there, that means you have a rib out. Is anybody feeling it? It's painful just above the clavicle. Like I can feel it right here. I can tell I have one out. That means you have a rib out. It's going to be somewhere. She'll find it. It just means that it's been pulled out of place. I don't know why. A doctor told her one time about this, and it's been a fact. 10 out of 10 times that she's felt it up here. It's been a rib out. And she's found it every time, and then you popped it back into place with the tuning forks. Right. I think I got everything on that one.
Do we have that in our?
You do not, but I'm going to give everybody, I've already went over most of it, and I'll give you all a copy of it before we start intaking people tomorrow. I do want to get to this though, because we haven't introduced ourselves. I kind of move right in with the contents. So I put on here, I'm just going to go through it as an example so you know a little bit about me. My name is Andrew Weaver. I grew up here in not too far from Jackson. Bobby Joe and I were very young childhood sweethearts. I've probably known her since she was 2 years old. We were boyfriend and girlfriend, and in my senior years, last time we we were together the longest time. But my mom and her grandmother were best friends, so she spent a lot of time with me at our farm in Homer, which is, if you ever see the M60 ends just about where our old location was here in Jackson, and about maybe 10 miles that way, 10 miles west of us, a little town called Homer, and we grew up together. And then I left her standing in my uncle's driveway when I went away into the Navy, and we hadn't seen each other for 25 years. And we both lived our own lives and apart from each other and never spoke to each other for the longest time. And then events occurred to where it was time for us to both come home, and we both detached from those lives and came home. Of course, there was a reason we left our previous lives, but left them behind, and we both ended up coming back here at the same time. Just so happened that she was coming back here to start her life over again with her father's estate, which happened to be my childhood home. Her father bought my childhood home on the farm in Homer, and she was coming back to take care of that, and we both returned at the same time. She wasn't standing in the exact place that I left her because she got cold, and but then we just found each other again, and we just kept going with it. We got married, and we've been doing this ever since. Of course, I was in the Navy for 22 years, traveled around the world. I did vibration underwater acoustics in the Navy pretty much the entire time I was there. So the physics of vibration is something I'm very, very, the science of it is something I'm very knowledgeable in. The source of the vibration may have changed, but the way that it works in the body, in water, and in any atmosphere, vibration works exactly the same. It doesn't change. So that really helped to know about sound healing. My experience with healing, my mother had taught me energy healing when I was a young child because I had really, really bad sinus pressure to the point that I would wake up crying because I was in so much pain. Now I know it was probably from dust and cigarette smoke. And you know, once I left, went in the Navy, it got a little better, but it never went away. My mother somehow knew how to do energy healing because I never realized it, put it together, but she had showed me different hand movements that when I would wake up in the morning, she showed me where to place my hand on my head. Not to press down, so it wasn't acupressure. It was energy healing. I had no idea what it was until I came back here. Of course, I had done reflexology, dabbled in it over the years. And when I came back here, her and I both went through Reiki training and certifications all the way up, and shamanism, energy, and then Bobby Joe introduced me to how to work with energy remotely. She has Native American in her blood, and she did things a certain way, and and I have more Irish in my blood, so I'm more physical in the way that I work with energy. She's more mental and showed me how to scan a person. Native Americans call it hollow bone, where we can actually focus on a person and feel where their pain is, and do distant healing. But we knew that it had to be something physical because Reiki, we started our business with Reiki, and it was mobile, and shamanism, we're like, all right, so how do we sell that as a service? Energy healing. And this was not the neighborhood to be doing that kind of stuff. So we felt that our clients needed something physical, and sound healing made sense to us. I got my certification here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Took about a year. She was tuning forks and singing bowls, so I learned both of those. And of course, we had singing bowls and tuning forks with us. She started the business and took some modification of what I had learned, and she started the business, brick and mortar in Hillsdale. Got her first client in, He laid down on the table, face down, said he had sciatic pain for 30 years, nothing's ever gotten rid of it, fix me. Well, of course, he's laying face down on the table. All of her protocols was exact point placements that we had decided we were going to do based off of acupuncture points, acupoints. And there were singing bowls, part of that process too. And she looked at him, and she looked at her tuning forks, which he had the 136 and the 128. She's like, put one of them down, and she just, somehow, it was almost like she zoned out for like the next 90 minutes, which was what our sessions were at the time. And she said, all right, tell me where your pain is at now. So he gets up, he bends over, and it's gone. It was gone. And it never came back. So when he left the office, she's like, what just happened, you know? So from that point on, we really had to figure out what was happening. We were getting results. We were both working side by side with each other at that time and trying to recreate what was happening, because we couldn't read it in a book. We read Eileen's book, we read John Beaulieu's book, we read all the books we can get our hands on. But nobody was teaching us this stuff. And she made most of this stuff up on her own. Every night she'd come back and she's like, look, I just did this. A lot of it had to do with what she was feeling with her hand. Probably the biggest thing that changed everything was the fact she put down the other tuning fork. And she put her hands on the person. She palpated, she felt. She had the tuning fork and the hand right next to each other and felt when something worked. She had instant feedback. That's what built what you're learning these 3 days, is all experience and a lot of research. Why the body can possibly do what it's doing with these tuning forks. We had to figure out why, because we didn't find the connection with the tuning forks and what was happening with a lot of the other methods. So we just stuck to it and kept focusing more and more and more. So when you answer that question, what's your experience, I just want you to tell us what you're currently doing, if you're doing anything with tuning forks, and your expectations. We really want to know what your expectations, what you want to do with this, because it's going to help us with future classes. It's going to help us know as we step out there into other modalities that are coming in, not just for the tuning forks as a standalone, but massage therapists, even your modality. As the bolt-on stuff, we really want to know where you're coming from so that we can know how to better serve you to bolt that onto your existing business. So we really want to know, all right, when I leave here, I expect to do this modality, which I've been doing for 20 years, and I want to incorporate it with this, and here's how I hope to do it. And then the fun fact. That's really so you can get to know each other. Maybe you say something that is interesting about you, and the person next to you is like, yeah, that's really interesting. I did this and this. And it helps you to get to know each other. I know that half of this room probably already knows each other in some capacity. Fun fact about me is I grew up on a rabbit farm, and we probably had over 1,000 rabbits at one point in my childhood. That's one of the things that made Bobby Jo remember me as much as she did, even as a young child, is the rabbits. We would always go out and play with the rabbits when she came over, and she knew me as the bunny boy. Couldn't remember my name. That's what she knew me as, the bunny boy. And yeah, we had a commercial rabbitry. We would supply meat rabbits, which was an unfortunate Silence of the Lambs part of my childhood. And they stopped that probably when I was 8 or 9 years old. And then we were also, we had them for show rabbits. We were part of the Michigan Rabbit Breeders Association, and there was a national convention.
Would that be prolific?
What's that?
Would that be prolific? The breeding?
No comment.
Can I slap you now?
Didn't need signposts.
I don't want any of that life getting out on the
We can't call
internet.
you Buddy Boy?
We all get it from now on.
I don't know, you might have to ask Bobby Joe about that.
But what do they do with all the
Or
rabbit
BB
pellets?
for short.
All the residue?
We would clean it out certain times a year and put it on our garden.
Oh.
And inside of the mounds were red worms, and that's what we used to fish. And they were huge clumps of them. So we'd go out fishing, we'd just go out and shovel a hole in there and reach in and get our bait. Okay, would you like to start?
Sure. My name's Kate Cheney. I live in Iowa, between, if you know anything about Iowa, between Iowa City and Cedar Rapids, which is supposedly the creative corridor. And we do our best to ascribe to that philosophy. I currently work in the neonatal intensive care unit at University of Iowa Hospitals, and that's my benefit job, which I'm going to be very happy to escape from in the very near future. Because it's a hard thing. You know, there's PTSD involved with it because we see the sickest babies out there with diseases and things that most people don't even know exist. So, and as I told other people, I have seen way too many babies die, so it's time to go. My experience started out many years ago as a massage therapist, and that's too long of a story to tell. A few years ago, I found out that had one of the best reflexology schools around, 30 miles from my house, and I didn't even know it existed. So I went back to reflexology school, and I have a reflexology practice, as well as my benefit job. A lot of what I'm expecting with VFRT is that I can get back to the body in a different way. Because Iowa is one of those states that says, you are a reflexologist and you can work from toes to ankle, and that's all you can touch, or hands, or head. But you can't do any real muscular work, and sometimes working on a foot, you know that if you could just get into the gastrocnemius and the soleus, that you could cure, or not cure, but you could fix a lot more problems. This is gonna help me be able to do that kind of work again, and that just thrills the heck out of me. And I am a biofield tuner, and so I know the stuff about the that particular field too, you know, and it's been valuable for PTSD and some things like that. So definitely it's got its place in my practice. And as far as a fun fact, if any of you are drummers, you may already know this, but I participate fairly often in drumming circles and stuff. And if you wear a Fitbit or things like that, if you drum, it adds steps to your Fitbit. So if you're a little low, just go get your drum and get your steps for the day.
Okay, Paul Ellison grew up in Brooklyn, New York, lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or as they say, the Twin Cities area. Well, actually what got me started on sort of the healing journey was that we took care of my mother in the last few years of her life, and I ended up becoming a medical advocate for her in various circumstances. So that's about the only way I came into the healing idea of healing, because mostly my background, I was in radiation monitoring instrumentation, so I had a science and math and electric background, yoga, I taught yoga and meditation classes. I've been doing yoga since my teens. And so it all came together, and then I started looking into what more could be done to bring the person or the body up to more optimal functioning. And so I noticed in the last year or two, I've been turning people away through contraindications and other things from my current practice. I found that in doing the VFRT, I'm not turning anybody away anymore, so that's been cool. My expectations using VFRT is to continue to get more facile, more mastery, as I've been seeing the amazing things that Bobby Joe has been doing in the last week or so. I'm more excited to see about doing more of that stuff. And the fun fact is actually kind of more like what I would like to do also, in addition to VFRT and my clients, is to see about, as maybe a group of us practitioners getting together and working on each other extracurricularly, so that we have some support, for each other.
We thought about doing a retreat, just for
Absolutely.
all of us.
Hey, look,
just
if
to
you
all
folks
come
put
in
it
and-
together, if you folks put it together, it's great. Otherwise, we can make our, I wouldn't say make our home available to a lot of people, but, whatever way it would work for.
Okay.
My name is Kathy Folkers. I'm from Western Massachusetts, outside of cities, which I like very much. My tuning fork experience started as a musician. When I used to put a tuning fork by the back door of the house where I lived, and every time I'd go out, I tried to memorize the pitch. So I would hum the pitch, and then I taught myself perfect pitch, which people say you can't do, but I really can. So that's where I started messing with tuning forks. But I was a musician and an instrument maker for probably 35 years. Since then, I've been a yoga and meditation teacher and trained in the academy where I had become the teacher. Also, I am a psychotherapist. I have a really integrated practice. I believe in psyche, body, and spirit as all being joined and not separate. But I have to say, this work just lights me up. I love working on people with this work, and what emerges as people are leaving pain behind is really amazing. So I find it just a wonderful way to work. I've always followed the things that light me up, and this has probably been the most fun and some of the most helpful work that I've ever done. My expectations have been blown out of the water because I have yet to work on anybody who didn't get better in this session. I've worked on people who come in with a diagnosis that I've never even heard of, and I start to get a little scared about it, and then I just apply the logic